Oh my God. Oh my God. She's conservative as heck, man. I've been dying to react to this on stream.
Hey everybody, it's Timmiller from the Bulwark here with our publisher, Sarah Longwell. I wanted to talk about an article that our colleague Lauren Egan wrote. It's called How Big is the Democrats' Big Tent? And it's centered around this question of the streamer, Hasan Piker, who is on the far left. Is he even a Democrat? He's one of DSA. He has a lot of critiques of the Democratic Party that come from the left. His critiques of the party are particularly acute when it comes to Israel and their actions in Gaza. Some Democrats were saying that the party shouldn't associate with Piker because he has some extreme views. He said some things that are either anti-Semitic or anti-Semitic curious or adjacent. And the questions are whether people should deal with him. I went long on this topic on the stream last night. For you to be like, now we as the centrist establishment serious types want to exile a far leftist from here because he has some impure thoughts about Israel. It's like, all you're doing is making him more powerful, making people think you're a bigger idiot. And it is truly, it's like madness. The entire country is moving Hassan's direction on the question of Israel. We're going to pick a fight with him on that right now? We did this already 5 years ago where a bunch of liberals were like, you can't go on Joe Rogan. He had some bad opinions. We can't do this shit again. Okay, Sarah watched the whole thing. Wow, JVL's going to be jealous. Do I agree with Hasan Piker's politics? I do not. Should people go on Hasan Piker's show? I think yes. Should Democrats campaign with him? Should there be a litmus test somewhere in the party? Like, should the tent encompass the entire country? Or, should there be polls, the conversation, like all that stuff gets jumbled up into one thing. And my views are different on different sort of sub-bullets. So I just kind of wanted to start there. On which one of those elements do you feel like your disagreement is with me?
To evaluate him is then to evaluate the rest of your question. Should he be in the tent or out of the tent? Who is this guy? What does he believe? What does he talk about on what is a relatively popular streaming site? And I'll just give you a flavor of some of the things that pop up from Hasan's critics that I have seen and that I think are quite terrible. America deserved 9/11, dude.
Okay, hold on. Trigger warning. This lady, her name is Sarah Longwell, American neoconservative political consultant and publisher of the conservative news and opinion website, The Bulwark. I know it's a conservative site, but it's always nice to get a perspective of them sometimes. She is a founder of the Republican Accountability Project, known as RAP. Wow. Moved to Washington, D.C., got a job with Richard Berman, a Republican lobbyist and later PR expert. Longwell also served as managing director of the American Beverage Institute, a trade association set up by Berman that lobbies on the behalf of the alcohol industry. Longwell became the first female national board chair of the Log Cabin Republicans. Longwell was instrumental in persuading the Log Cabin Republicans to refrain from endorsing then-candidate Donald Trump in 2016. In 2019, the Log Cabin Republicans endorsed President Trump for re-election. Longwell resigned as the chair of the board. So now you know, she's conservative through and through. Take her criticisms with a grain of salt, but also pay attention to how she is doing this.
On China, he says, we hyper-focus on the social repression or the civil liberties, or not even civil liberties necessarily, but free speech and things like that. But in terms of good governance, there's a lot we can learn from the way they perform out there. At least they get results. And he has a lot of very pro-China takes. There's one that he says was a little bit taken out of context. Doesn't matter if the happened on October 7th. That doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much. So that's the other part of this problem that many people can't contend with. Palestinian resistance is not perfect. He says Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. And Hezbollah, he said, overall, what's my favorite flag? Hezbollah. Look it up. I'm not even kidding. It's actually a dope flag. It's got an AK on it and a fucking hand holding it up. On Dan Crenshaw losing an eye in Afghanistan. I also dislike Dan Crenshaw, but I would not say this.
But he's a conservative.
This guy has the understanding of foreign policy of like a 12-year-old. What the f is wrong with this dude? Didn't he go to war and like literally lose his eye because some mujahideen, a brave soldier, his eye hole?
Jesus.
America deserved 9/11, dude.
Damn.
Here exclusively to respond to that vile creature is Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw. Congressman, what was your reaction when you first heard this?
Wow, he was triggered, wasn't he?
Oh, they're so
Definition of a
triggered.
leftist
The leftist tears. Oh, yummy.
doesn't like what he's hearing.
Sorry, it's so stupid. He was arguing with chat for over 2 hours about how we used to fund Osama bin Laden. Talking about Mujahideen fighters, how the U.S. funded them to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan.
Doesn't understand foreign policies. Mentioned something about being 12 years old. Yeah, I have almost 12 years of experience actually deploying overseas. So maybe that's what he meant.
He was
Know
saying,
much.
how can you actively advocate to start more pointless wars where other men and women and Americans would be harmed? Have you not learned anything?
When you don't know much about foreign policy, you get really mad when people disagree with you. And if you can't argue your point, you tend to insult people. And man, that is exactly the outrage culture that we have right now. He is a perfect example of it. He's trying to walk his comments back now. Good on him for trying to do that.
Okay, let's go back to Sarah Longwell.
On Russia's annexation of Crimea. Annexation of Crimea was absolutely a justifiable annexation. What do you call Crimea? I call it part of Russian territory. I call it Crimea a river. The annexation of Crimea was absolutely a justifiable annexation. On black people. Black people care about the border. I don't give a fuck what black people care about. Black people care about this. Black people care about that. Like, shut the fuck up. That's not how politics work. This one's a real doozy. Date is better if it happens to rich women. If you have these fucking millionaire, billionaire, WASP fail sons, at least taking them out of other colleges so they can only do date rape to other billionaire, millionaire failed daughters is in some respects, from a utilitarian perspective, of course, a little bit better. Piker told off a listener who condemned the massacre on October 7th, a bloodthirsty, violent pig dog suck my. So that's the guy.
Okay, that's the guy.
That's
the
guy.
straw man that she painted.
I do not think any Democrat should look to include him in their coalition. You mentioned my book at the top. I just wrote a whole book that is going to come out in September. It is 300 pages about how you build a winning coalition. There's not a single paragraph that recommends cozying up to people like Hasan Piker. I talk a lot about big tents. I talk a lot about a pro-democracy coalition. But here's the thing. Hasan Piker doesn't actually belong in the pro-democracy coalition. He's a China-Russia sympathizer who hates women, hates Israel. Like, he's all the toxic things.
He hates women.
And I was listening to you last night, and I felt like you were soft selling who this guy is. Like, at one point, I think you called it like impure thoughts or something.
If you're streaming 8 hours a day, the critics that sometimes look at an 8-word snippet of something somebody says, I'm like, you fucking talk for 8 hours a day. I just talked for 1 hour a day last night, and I rewatched that video and saw impure thoughts, and that's not what I was trying to say. You
don't accidentally say America deserves 9/11.
No. He had some very bad takes in there too.
Can I push back on this idea, though? They're not takes. This guy has a worldview. See, it's not that we just disagree with his politics. I think his worldview.
What is illiberal about Hassan's worldview? He doesn't want to give up voting. He wants voting to be easier. I don't get it with this whole he's illiberal. And I feel like that's the new buzzword of the moment that conservatives are going crazy over because liberals are going crazy over it. We just talked about Viktor Orban and his illiberal society. He was basically an autocrat. There was no liberal democracy there. Liberal democracy means you have this liberty, right? That's what it's coming from. You have these rights to these freedoms. And I don't know why she's trying to paint Hasan as someone who wants less freedom. And no, Hasan has never called for less freedom. But, again, she's a conservative who is trying to paint him as a bad guy.
And the way he talks about people is disgusting. And so, I think he is all of the things that I think you were being too hard on sort of the third way types who are condemning him because he is condemnable. And I think it is important. You and I spent a long time when I was on your podcast trying to take our longtime reflexive pro-Israel stances and kind of wrestle with that now in this new world. And
pro-Israel stances. Boy, oh boy, do you have a lot of issues to wrestle with in terms of pro-Israel stances.
One of the things that is scary about wrestling with that is that there's a bunch of people on the I'm against this war, I'm against Israel's involvement in this war, who do it for anti-Semitic reasons. And I think disaggregating from those people as you criticize.
Hasan is not being anti-Semitic in saying that he doesn't support Israel in the war. That's crazy. That's a crazy relation to make.
This war is absolutely essential from a moral standpoint.
This, I think, is the crux of the deal. Because, as I said last night, I argued with Hasan about China on and off stage. I argued with Hasan about his focus on Israel on stage. And I think that he is a liberal. And I think that if Hasan was running for Congress or president,
you think he is illiberal?
Illiberal, I do. And I think that if he was running for one of those things, I would oppose him. And I think that probably, I think it's very unlikely that me and Hasan will have the same preferred candidates in the Democratic 2028 campaign. If we do, that candidate will end up being very adept at navigating our very fractures. So who the hell knows what the future holds? But I don't like it. I don't like his worldview, and I think that it is worth objecting to.
They're not. Well, at least Sarah Longwell is not trying to disprove Hasan's worldview. She's just trying to straight up cancel him and censor his worldview, which is crazy. Imagine if a liberal was doing that to a conservative. It would be the end of the world.
I also just think that, two things. One, people that consume him hear that list and are like, that doesn't mesh with the guy I know, right? And I think that if you came up with my 10 worst takes, they would not sound as bad as his list, or anywhere near as bad, I don't think. But especially if you go back to 2004, I have some pretty bad takes going all the way back, okay? So I just mean, if you put my list together, I think a lot of bulwark people would be like, guy, you're being unfair. I think that there are a lot of areas where he is genuine, that he cares about stuff, human rights. And again, I don't watch this on day to day, but I hearing this from other people, I think they would say, wait a minute, you're trying to turn him into Tucker or somebody whose whole show is about anti-Semitism right now, but like he talks a
no.
lot about making sure people can get a living wage and human rights around the world and how we should care
So
about
does
rights
Tucker.
for people. So anyway, I'm just telling you what people would say about him. I think that I do think that it is a category difference. A lot of people who are criticizing me about the stream last night are trying to lump it in with like, I thought you left Trump. And I was like, no, Trump had a lot of obnoxious views and then he ran for president, tripling down on them and being like, hey, here are all my worst views. And like, I think that we should institute them as policy. Some of the things you laid out, I think Hasan would agree with. Some of those things, if you read the profiles of him, he's backed off on, particularly.
No, he says he does not apologize for any of them. He was just taken out of context.
All of that aside, the strategic question, the analytical question, right,
Yep.
is how Democrats should handle somebody like that.
Yeah.
And like this is where I'm the harshest on the view that he should be kicked out. And I'm particularly harsh, and I said this last night, and this relates to your point about Israel, about like picking this fight with him right now, like at this moment today, April 3rd of 2026. Because right now we are embroiled in a catastrophic war that the Secretary of State said we did because Israel got us into it. You can call that a conspiracy theory or whatever, but like the Secretary of State said it and the president has basically said it, though he does word salad a bunch of times. And I just think that any fair analyst could look at it and say, well, obviously like this war is more in Israel's acute interest than ours. Like that's just a statement of fact, right? So like we are in this war with our partner Israel right now on the heels of their behavior in Gaza, however you want to describe that, whether it's genocide or ethnic cleansing or war crimes or just
what is she going to call it?
Than...
Is she going to say that Israel is doing ethnic cleansing in Gaza or what?
Now we've partnered with them for a war in Iran that is going to create massive damage globally to people's lives. Like people are going to be materially harmed by this war. They already are. And there are a lot of people out there in this country right now who are really mad about that. And they're about to get really madder in the coming months.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them look at the
almost 2 weeks
they blame
ago.
Trump, but they also look at the Democratic Party and be like, you guys have been on this too. Joe Biden was in there when Israel was doing the Gaza thing. The Democrats have been, part of this bipartisan establishment that got us into these stupid wars forever. And they look around for people, and who do they see out there saying, no, we should not do
literally
these wars.
no
They're stupid,
one.
they're wrong. They see people like Hasan.
To add on to Tim Miller's point, you have Hasan out there saying this is bad, being an active voice against what was happening in Gaza. And then you had Hillary Clinton saying that Gaza was just a bad optic thing that was on TikTok.
We're going to talk about none other than racist warmonger
Hillary Clinton.
And I love you all too. Who reappeared recently at a conference held by, I believe it was Israel Hayom. Many of you may have already seen this clip. If you haven't, we're going to play it now.
Smart, well-educated young people from our own country, from around the world, where were they getting their information? They were getting their information from social media, particularly TikTok. That is where they were learning about what happened on October 7th, what happened in the days, weeks, and months to follow. That's a serious problem. It's a serious problem for democracy, whether it's Israel or the United States, and it's a serious problem for our young people. And it was frankly shocking to me how little the students we were encountering, not only in this class we teach, which is a very large class, international relations, about crisis decision making, but students more generally. And that's why I mentioned the social media piece of it, because when you would try to talk to them to engage in some kind of reasonable discussion, it was very difficult because they did not know history, they had very little context, and what they were being told on social media was not just one-sided, it was pure propaganda. When you think about how to tell Israel's story, and it's important, it's not just looking internally, it's looking externally, and particularly looking at young people, because, it's not just the usual suspects. It is a lot of young Jewish Americans who don't know the history and don't understand.
TikTok is the problem. Let's break that down. The fact that Palestinians and whoever was there to witness and capture the violence firsthand to spread what Hillary Clinton called propaganda is the issue here. It's not that, I thought we lived in a liberal society where we have freedom of speech, freedom of press, right? Freedom to share these information. And Hillary Clinton is acting like it was unproportionally represented. The violence in Gaza was unproportionally represented compared to the violence in Israel, right? That's wrong, bro. I can't believe she would tell these young students to not trust their own eyes. It's crazy. It's crazy. So it's like you have the Democratic establishment, or like as Tim Miller says, the Republican and Democratic establishment that have always been on board with helping Israel no matter what. No strings attached, no questions asked. They have been okay with that level of involvement. And now that, Netanyahu, who is also a illiberal president because he's been doing democratic backsliding for I don't know how long now. But you know what? There's not democracy in these areas, or at least in Israel, and like trying to control the media and the spread of information is not the way to solve it. The problem with Israel and Gaza is not that people were recording the atrocities, it's that Israel was doing the atrocities, okay? And it is not that American students witnessed all these atrocities happening, it's that the atrocities happened in the first place. It's crazy that one of the most established Democrats in the party would say that the young people should not be seeing all this information. And then, on the flip side, you have Hasan, who's like, okay, let's research everything together. Let's try to figure out what is happening in the news today. And you see these violent things, and it's like, how can you ignore your eyes?
A lot of them are assessing the landscape, and they're saying, like, Trump betrayed me. I thought I was on board with the no wars candidate. And they're gettable right now. I guess as ripe as they have ever been to be gotten by the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And in this moment, the Democratic Party and their leaders should be focused, in my view, on being as clear and loud and passionate as possible. No stupid wars. I will not get you involved in this. This is a mistake. To the extent that Israel is involved, the fact that our relationship is closely tied to them is a mistake. And if we ever get back in power, we will not betray you. We hear you. We see this. And instead, you hear a lot of Democratic leaders being like, well, we should kick this guy out. But that's what he's known
Crazy.
for. And it's like, what? We're picking this fight with him now?
Oh, she's mad.
I'm just like, I could think of 1,000 other things I would rather Democrats pick fights about now. Like, why him right now?
Because he's making their life harder. People like Hasan are making Democrats who want to take a stand against this war, right? And who want to probably take a stand against the way that Trump is just sort of like doing whatever Bibi tells him.
And it's crazy. It's like, you're a conservative. Why do you care so much about the Democratic Party?
I'll tell you why Hasan is so dangerous is that what it does is it's exactly what Trump does. It's exactly what Nick Fuentes does and Tucker does. It takes maybe legitimate rage about something, and then it gives them an enemy to put it on. It gives them an outgroup to blame for it. And I think you have to be so careful with that so that you're not doing that, which starts with,
Is she not also pointing at, like, taking legitimate rage and pointing to an outgroup and blaming them for it? She's basically doing that to Hasan.
condemning the people who hold the same position as you for reasons that are bad, for reasons that are hostile to
Here's where I
Jews.
disagree.
Here we
Totally
go.
disagree. Totally
Tim,
disagree.
Cumster
It starts
and
with
dumpster
condemning
her.
the fucking war and condemning Israel and condemning Bibi and condemning Trump and being passionate and clear about it. Because then what happens? Then, if you have the credibility then with the voters
Amen.
who were anti-war voters, who were unhappy about the way that they see the bipartisan establishment, and they thought Trump was going to be their savior from this, that there was this blob in DC, and no matter which party is in charge, we always get into stupid wars. They thought Trump was their way out of this, and now they're like, Trump's doing the same shit that all the other ones did that we said we didn't want it. He's doing it worse.
Yup.
And so now if the Democrats go to those people and go on those shows, they should be on those shows. Democrats should be begging Joe Rogan or Theo, whoever, to have them on right now. They should be on Manosphere shows being like, I told you, this was stupid. I didn't want to do this. This war is dumb. Our relationship with Israel is too tight. We should be reevaluating it. We should not be getting dog walked into this war. By the way, MBS also sucks, right? Like, you can do that in a way that's not anti-Semitic because it's what happened. Like, it's happened. And so if they did that, and then in 5 months,
Why is there a 5-month gap? Why can't it be in the same breath?
Because you gotta give someone a chance first, right? I'm sorry. Is that not like what Republicans and even liberals in 2016, when Hillary Clinton stepped down and gave the concession speech that she lost the presidential election, she was like,
last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country. Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
and I said, yes, ma'am, I'm giving Donald Trump a chance. And I spent 2016, 17, 18, 19, and then fucking 2020, 4 years of hell, bro. Okay, so give Hasan a chance, but she has an agenda.
Right? Like, part of what is happening is that there is a desperate anger over this war. from a lot of people that feel.
Well, why
betrayed by
wouldn't
Donald
there
Trump,
be
that don't want any more
desperate
foreign
anger?
wars in the Middle East, and like we're almost it's not about Israel. Like for some, there's a for
It's
some people
not.
it is about Israel. For some people it is about anti-Semitism. Those are different. And then there's just a lot. I think the vast majority of people are just mad we're doing this again.
Yeah.
And so like Democrats
And what's
should
wrong
be
with that?
condoning it. They should be outspoken. They should be the one to try to gain a following by talking about this. But I think in doing so, they should separate themselves from people like Hasan. I don't think you have to
No.
wrap your arms around him. I don't think
He has
be like,
credibility and they don't. on this stuff.
Yes, that's what
And
it
they're
they should go get
ultimately comes
credibility
down
they're
to.
themselves.
exacerbating
They don't need to borrow it from him.
I'm not
No,
talking-
they
I'm
don't
not doing
have
this wrong.
credibility though, bro, because they lied already. They're Democratic establishment. We backed Joe Biden, and then he did that horrible debate where he was, couldn't even talk. And then 2 days later, we were like, okay, we don't know what the F is going on, but Joe Biden's not going to win. And we backed Kamala. And then Kamala gets the endorsement at the DNC, and she turns around and says, we're going to be the most lethal and violent army in the world. Like, they keep lying to us, okay? That's why these Democrats have no integrity, right? This is why Hasan, like Tim Miller is saying, Hasan has to lend these Democrats his credibility because they don't have it on their own.
Here's the disagreement. I never said I think Democrats should campaign with him. I disagree with that.
I don't think they should go on his show.
I think
They
you
could
don't
go
think
on
they should go on
Rogan.
his show?
Hasan's? No.
Oh my God, that we could.
He has
not
so
agree,
many
disagree more.
views.
Oh my! A lot of people watch. They're gonna watch this video. Watch a Hasan show. I hear
Let me
from
ask
them.
you
I saw
this.
them on the street. The idea.
I know.
This is like the same shit we just did with Joe Rogan. It's like Democrats
Yup.
should go on Joe Rogan has terrible fucking views. They have to speak to those people. Those are the people that they have to speak to. Why wouldn't they do that? Like right now, especially right now when they're the most
All right.
gettable.
So Nick Fuentes is out there saying we should vote for Democrats. Think Democrats should go on Nick Fuentes' show? I don't.
Well, Nick Fuentes is full of shit. I don't think they should go on a show, but not really so much because he's an anti-Semite. I don't think they should go on a show because he's a troll. You can say his beliefs are bad or wrong or shameful or should be condemned, and you could go on a show and fight him about it. Hasan is not out there doing like jokes about ovens and
Yeah.
the Jew. There might not have been that many people killed in the Holocaust, doing trolling. What does Nick Fuentes even believe? Does anybody even know? Does he even know? I don't think he even knows what he believes anymore. Like he's just full of shit. Like, it's
Nick
it's like a
Fuentes
var-
is just a troll through and through, Like, how can you be so pro MAGA and then the minute that Donald Trump does something you not like, and then you're like, MAGA's dead completely, drop Donald? It's like, he doesn't have convictions. He doesn't have, a legitimate worldview that he wants to see play out. He just wants to troll and get laugh along the way.
Hasan has passionate left-wing views, and they should be grappled with. I think.
Who says that 9/11 was America's fault and that I don't think this is a serious
That's
person.
not
This is my,
a view,
my
bro.
problem. Now, I'm going to both state a problem, and then I think one of the ways in which strategically this is bad. Nick Fuentes and Hasan Piker are both being elevated in the discourse. People are kind of there for that experience, and it raises their curiosity. This happened with Andrew Tate. There is just a series of people where the outrage against them is making them more powerful. That being said, understanding that dynamic doesn't mean that there's just sort of a right is still right and wrong is still wrong. I do think Hasan, but I felt this way about Mamdani.
To me, ultimately, what I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
Sure.
And as a Muslim man who grew up post 9/11, I'm all too familiar in the way in which Arabic words can be twisted, can be distorted, can be used to justify any kind of meaning.
Yep.
And I think that's where it leaves me with a sense that what we need to do is focus on keeping Jewish New Yorkers safe. And the question of the permissibility of language is something that I haven't ventured
Cool.
into.
It's I just feel like the phrase globalized intifada is not something people should use because even if you don't intend it to be that way, it is heard by Jewish people as kill us everywhere. And so that should be condemned. And then I asked
Okay, well you know what? If you're hearing the word intifada and think that means something against you as a Jewish person, why would you not look up what intifada means? Jesus, it's like they are looking for things to, claim anti-Semitism against.
Actually, I want to say something because I'm not sure if we've talked about this before.
What?
I was also on a panel with him, and I didn't know who he was going into it. This is
I
actually
love
the
this.
embarrassing part of this is that I don't really know. I don't follow who the Twitch streamers are, and I hadn't really heard of him. Or if I had, I hadn't bothered to figure out who he was. And when he started talking, the first things out of his mouth were ridiculous, and they were attacks on Bill. And it was this this guy's worthless.
Worthless, brother.
I don't find him to be remotely interesting as a thinker, or I get that he's got a big audience, but just because these guys have big audiences doesn't mean they're all created equal.
In my argument for engaging with him last night. I said it was like, even this week he attacked Scott Wiener, state senator out of California, for visiting Israel after October 7th. And I was like, that's a crazy thing to attack somebody over. That's an insane thing to attack somebody over, and that's wrong. And I find it repugnant, actually. Here's my problem, though, is why it matters all in the context of Israel. You're saying that these guys are being elevated by the Streisand effect, and I think that is part of it. It is true. And I think that, again, and I think that's why this is counterproductive to have this fight right now for pro-Israel Democrats or centrist Democrats or whatever, any of those groups, because I think right now he's being elevated quite a bit. But I don't think that's what's elevating him. I mean, I think that what is happening in the world is elevating him in the moment. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. This is like very uncomfortable for like defenders of Israel to deal with. But like, what happened was we were in a world after October 7th where there were a lot of people that were too soon for my taste out there attacking Israel for what they're doing in Gaza and how they're prosecuting the war, and they're doing so in ways that they're clearly anti-Semitic. But there are also times where they're talking about things that other people weren't talking about in the news, like the amount of death and destruction that was happening to the Palestinians in Gaza.
Yes.
And they were talking about that passionately, but they were talking about this topic passionately. They're talking about how Israel is a malign influence on the world, and that they have too much, and that they have too much influence in American politics. We're giving them too much aid, that AIPAC is too involved in these campaigns. And if you came and listened to my show a year ago, like anytime this topic come up, I was on the opposite side. I was saying that you're overstating. It's kind of anti-Semitic how you're blaming AIPAC for everything. You're overstating AIPAC's influence. The race is going to be determined based on AIPAC's involvement, is what it is right now. And Israel did continue to go way overboard in their prosecution of the war in Gaza, and then not to mention what's happening in the West Bank with the settlements, not to mention the fact that they're invading Lebanon right now. So sure, there might have been some anti-Semitic stuff mixed in there, and that's not good. I'm not okaying that. It's bad. They should not do anti-Semitic stuff. But like their general critique of the lefty anti-Israel commentators has borne out in the real world. I don't know what pro-Israel people expect. All of the establishment figures want to kind of tamp that down, and there are these other voices out there that have been speaking about it. Well, obviously they're going to gain influence. Shouldn't Democratic politicians talk to the viewers of those shows? They're not all anti-Semites.
I don't want to say that I think you're falling into a trap, but I do think
oh
that there are ways.
My God.
She
said, I don't want to mansplain you. But she said, you're stupid and you're falling for Hasan. She has so much against Hasan for no reason.
Them to do is to get out there on offense, to say what they believe. They should passionately argue against this war, if that is what they believe. If it's not, that's different. But like, they should passionately argue about it so that people listen to them. And so they have credibility on this. That doesn't require Hasan Piker.
But
like,
who's doing
this
that?
idea that this
is Chuck Schumer doing that, or the 2028ers?
No, none of the Democratic leaders are doing that. The Democratic base is turning and looking for someone else because they're failing us, as they always have.
Ignore Hasan Piker at all.
I'm fine with.
Ignore him.
Why?
And the reason that we were anti-Trump is partly because he loved to be in lockstep with all the grossest people. The way he checks in with Tucker. Why is J.D. Vance cozying up to them? Why do we condemn them? We condemn J.D. Vance for cozying up to bad people for electoral reasons.
I'm not arguing that they cozy up. What prompted all this was the idea that John Ossoff has to condemn Hasan Piker because Hasan Piker complimented him. That's fucking insane. Fuck you, is what John Ossoff should say. John Ossoff should say, I don't know what Hasan Piker's whole
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is. Here's what my opinion is. I'm against this war in Iran.
Yeah.
I'm against this war, and I'm against this Trump administration that's killing people in the streets. And that's what I care about. You want me to talk about some streamer?
I was on your side on that point. It was the rest of it. It was last night, listening to it being that I do not think, though, for electoral reasons, they need to embrace Hasan.
I never said embrace. I said talk to his audience. Talk to the people that listen to him and Joe Rogan and Theo and Sneeko, all of these anti-war people. That, there's some anti-Semites there. I hear that.
But you can do that without,
guess what? Anti-Semites voted for Barack Obama.
How can you get the eyes onto the people you want, the politicians you actually want people to look at, if they're boring as hell or not saying anything that young people are willing to engage with?
But you don't have to court them.
Homophobes.
You don't have to court them.
No, but you have to have a message. Yeah, the voters.
Not
You have to have a message
Hasan.
for the people that listen to the shows.
Because of the anti-Semitism.
You have to have a message for people that listen to the shows. Like, let's make sure that the people in McLean, Virginia, with that go to the parties in DC aren't mad. It's like, who cares what those people think? Talk to the real Americans that are flocking to these shows that are upset about what is happening in the world. Have a message for them. Talk to them. Go on those platforms to talk to them. And if then the host says anti-Semitic stuff, say, no, I don't fucking believe that. I don't believe the Jews were behind Charlie Kirk's murder. I don't believe that we deserve 9/11. You can say all that on those platforms, but also say to people that, you know what I'm mad about? I'm not mad about some streamer and something he said 3 years ago. This kind of fight just exacerbates that.
I agree with that particular point about it exacerbating it. I think that we should separate the idea of Democrats should be going hard against this war. They do need to be more aggressive. They do need to speak to a wider audience. I do not think they need to do that with Hasan Piker, and I do not think, and I think
give another example of who else, bro.
To separate from the anti-Semites as they do it, because otherwise what you are doing is ginning up anti-Semitism.
I'm just going to say it. I think there's a lot of anti-Semitism out there. I think that a lot of the people who are pro-Israel and pro this war weaponize this, though. And it's like, well, it's too anti-Semitic. If I would have said a month ago
but I think Hasan
that Israel is
okay, but if you think he's anti-Semitic is a lot different than if he's anti-Semitic. Is Hasan anti-Semitic? We already know this.
If you would have said that Israel's going to drag America into a war that we have nothing to do with, based on their influence over our political leaders, 2 months ago, people would have said that's an anti-Semitic thing to say.
Mhm.
And now we're doing that. And so I'm with you. What happened in Michigan is a tragedy. People should be clear-eyed. But also this notion that like there's a lot of folks out there that are trying to police the rhetoric around this because they don't want Israel to be criticized in the full,
And they're not even
full
Jewish,
view of their actions. And there's a lot of criticism of Israel that is merited right now. And I just think that this, again, it goes back to who you empowering. On one side, Israel is starting a war in Iran and getting us into this quagmire and hurting people's lives. And then on the other side, you have people that are saying things about Israel. There's a disconnect with people. I think you're empowering the actual anti-Semites by not being clear-eyed about
Tim.
the real threat here.
How is this different? This is one of the.
She's like, I'm gonna kick his ass off the payroll. He's embarrassing me. Oh my God.
Our objection to Trump when he showed up, like when people were like, it's locker room talk. I was like, fuck you, locker room talk. We stood against Trump. Everybody else on the right, I don't take a lot of their criticisms. Like they're not in a position to levy this because what they did is say, we need Nick Fuentes' audience. We need Tucker's audience. We need to all get on board with Trump despite the horrific things he's saying because he's right about X, Y, Z.
I'm sorry, but didn't Trump do that? Didn't Trump? That's why he went on Joe Rogan. That's why he went on Theo Vaughn. That's why he went on Aiden Ross. Trump was like, yes, I need to go where all the young men are. And they were all on Kick. They're all on Twitch. And they're all on these different gaming live streaming platforms. Why is it okay for Trump to do that strategy, a clearly working strategy, but not for any Democrat to do? She must be trying to sabotage the Democratic Party.
Rage that people had. Well, Trump is going to embody that. And we said, no, we stand against random rage from people or rage from people, even about things that maybe they're right to be mad about, income inequality, stupid foreign wars, right? Like Trump had messages that resonated with people. And we were like, no, we stand against that because this guy is a foul person who is going to do tremendous damage to America. We were right about that. I'm going to maintain that against people like Hasan.
Well, and Hasan's not running for president. I've changed my views. That would be one.
Jesus.
Number two, Trump was running for president. Number two is like, again, that's not really the apt comparison, right? Like the apt comparison is, should Republican politicians have gone to mega churches to talk to people that have, influential pastors?
And they do,
that have
right?
terrible views about gays. Don't you have to communicate to the religious voters on there? I mean, some of this is not like apt because I think that like the Volk that listen to Hasan that like are mad about Israel, like have a point. And like the Volk on the right that are like mad about mass immigration coming into the country, like I don't think really have a point, but like that is like kind of the comparison. Like just as a strategic matter in retrospect, like obviously the establishment Republicans should have listened more to their base to avoid having them being overthrown by Trump. That's maybe more of the apt comparison with Hasan. Like my issue with the Democrats running for office they're in office that are in power is that they're not criticizing our foreign policy enough. They're not passionate enough. I don't think there's any risk right now that there's like some emerging, like who do you want me to condemn? Like who is the person in the Democratic Party that is advancing these real anti-Semitic views?
None.
Like Tlaib sometimes in the House. I'm happy to condemn her when she talks.
Tlaib, Omar.
Yeah, sure. Okay, but like, all right.
Omar is being anti-Semitic? Bro,
So,
okay. Yeah, I feel like Sarah Longwell is just being Islamophobic.
the power structures in the Democratic Party this is nothing like Trump. This is not apt at all. This is not like, oh, you left the party over Trump. I was like, well, Trump took over the whole party. I fought him from within the party, and then he took it over, and then I fought him from within the party, and then eventually I lost the fight and I left the party. This fight isn't even happening in the Democratic Party yet. Like the Democratic Party leadership is, in my view, like not radical enough. Like, I know. So I don't think that
is like Sarah Longwell acting like Hasan is the gateway to a Trump-like figure entering the Democratic Party, and so now she's trying to make up for her sins of being a Republican and stopping this populist movement from happening in the Democratic Party.
This comparison does nothing for me.
Okay, well, let me just try one more time.
Yeah.
My objection in large part is that he tried to work on people's worst impulses. He appealed to the racism, the xenophobia, the hatred, the bad stuff.
Okay, yes, Trump.
And
how is Hasan
don't want
doing
Democrats to go down that road. I think it is very important when you fight Trump, when you look into the abyss looks back at you, and Democrats should avoid the mistakes that I think the Republicans made that made us leave, which was embracing intolerable people. And that point that you're making about Trump is a fair one. Hasan is just a streamer. He's not the guy running for president.
Yeah.
I do think the elements of your argument, which is that Hasan is representing an angry base and the base needs to be listened to. That's what happened with Republicans. They're like, Trump represents an angry base and the base needs to be listened to.
This is what happened.
Yeah, but I think the base needs.
This is just, it's been anti-establishment sentiments from the get-go. 2016, I would even say 2008, people were fed up with the establishment. That's why they voted for Obama. That's why they voted for Trump, because we were dumb enough to take these men at their face value.
I think that what is elided in this conversation is, again, the actions of Israel. Again, I do not condone Hasan's anti-Semitic comments. I specifically criticized his tweet this week about Scott Wiener. So, like, I think that it's bad. If I am worried about anti-Semitism in this country, and that is what a lot of these groups that are trying to make Hasan an issue about,
Yep.
if that is my top worry, and my main focus is on condemning Hasan Piker, I think that you've lost your mind. I think that is just a totally counterproductive thing to do.
You lost
I think
the
that
plot.
by doing that, you're empowering him and empowering the views you don't like. And I think that the biggest problem with anti-Semitism in this country right now is that the United States is engaged in a war, and everyone who just has eyes is looking at this war and being like, I don't understand why we're in it. And the most reasonable explanation I can think of is that Israel wants us to be in it because this is an acute issue for Israel.
Yep.
I think that that's going to create a lot of people that are very upset at Israel. And by nature, unfortunately, sadly, what is going to result from that is increased anti-Semitism. And if I was somebody who's worried about anti-Semitism in this country, and if I was a Democratic Party leader, I think that both the right thing to do and the strategic thing to do would be to be 100x louder in criticism of Bibi than I am in criticism of Hasan Piker.
I think I am in agreement that strategically what one does, this is something people fall into, and I think Democrats do as well, where they focus too much on sort of trying to critique the thing they think is bad instead of saying the thing they think is right. And so what I would like Democrats to do is like,
That's what you're doing. Sarah Longwell is critiquing the thing she thinks is bad instead of focusing on what she thinks is right. Instead, she's just being like, Hasan Piker bad, and not giving any alternative to good. People love snitching on themselves. That's going to be the new freaking theme of this stream.
go swing hard on how you feel about this, the way that Trump got us into this war. He didn't even ask Congress, that he has done nothing to ask the American people or make a case to the American people. Like, everything about this from top to bottom has been an insane adventure. It's the exact opposite of what he ran on. Oil prices are now high. There's a million things to criticize. Go hard. Go focus on that.
That's what Piker is
I
doing.
don't think, though. I think it is a mistake. I think that it is a mistake to make it about Hasan Piker. I think
You're literally making it
about the anti-Semites and make a good.
See what I mean? People love snitching on themselves. She said it's a mistake to make it about Hasan Piker, and then she's making it about Hasan Piker because she literally saw her employee streaming the night before glazing Hasan. Jesus.
My last word is I do not think you need to embrace people like Hasan, and I think it's fine to condemn him and then go make your own case.
Yeah, sure.
Quick note to Bulwark
Shut
listeners,
up.
which is something that is happening that bugs me, is when people are like, the Bulwark is embracing Hasan. And I'm like, guys, I get it that Tim's got the big microphone, but like, one man's opinion.
That's
okay?
that's
There's
what
many
this
of
is
us.
about.
We have-
That's what this is actually about. She didn't like how she saw that people on the internet were saying the Bulwark is embracing Hasan, and this is her shitting on him, on Tim Miller. Jesus, to say you did a bad thing. Oh my God, this is crazy. I never want to work at a media agency.
We have a big array of opinions. We argue about them with each other. That's what the Bulwark is about.
Yeah.
And so if you want honest conversations about tough topics, like, that's what we're going to do here.
I hear you on that, and this is why it was funny, actually. This is just a comment. We can go meta, since we've I think expressed
We've done the
our
substance,
contrary
yeah.
views. The meta comment I think is funny about this is last night after I did the stream, I was like, you should not do this. You should not do this. Is a bad thing to do as an influencer, commentator, whatever. And I try not to do this that often, but I was just
You went and read
curious.
the comments?
No, I searced Twitter and Reddit, and it was like pretty
Wow,
funny,
okay.
actually. There are like anti-Hasan clip accounts that
Uh-huh.
like clipped two of the things that I said criticizing him, and like it was like Tim Miller goes after Hasan.
It was probably the Hasan haters that were glazing up Tim Miller.
You know, because they're trying to like make him a bad guy. They're lefty anti-Hasan,
see?
you know,
They're
accounts. And then
anti-Hasan.
they're like, then they're like the anti-Bulwark accounts, the pro-Israel, you know, whatever right-wing accounts. Like they had clipped the ones where I was explaining why I don't think the Democrats should distance from him, being like the Bulwark has gone full Hasan. It's like, this is just like the nature of the discourse. And so anyway, my closing point is I do not like his politics, and I disagree with him, and I think that we'll continue to fight over it. I think the question then is, okay, how do you engage with that in a way that's healthy? And is it in a way that's like burn the witch? Is it a way that's ignore? Is it a way that's
Yeah.
engage?
No.
Is it somewhere in between all those things? And I think
Can't
that is
burn
what the
the
question
witch.
is. And my view is, I think the most important part about this is like, how do you talk to, if you're the Democrats, to the people that listen to and trust him, and how do you build trust and gain trust with them without looking into the abyss and having the abyss look back into you, right? Without becoming him, without you yourself advancing views that are wrong or hateful.
But like,
or
what are
whatever.
the
Like, how do
views
you
that are
engage them
wrong
without
that he
doing that?
holds?
That's what I think that should be done. Do you have a final comment, or should we let it go?
I think we can let it. I think we can leave it there. I just
This is
She's
like
like,
your self-
she's like, I've reprimanded you enough in front of the entire audience of this network. Our reputation is saved with neocons because I don't want any conservative to think that anyone of the Bulwark likes Hasan Piker, that filthy communist. Disgusting. All right, thank you, Bulwark. This was one of the best debates I've seen about the Hasan discourse.